Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Ether Hub and more Magic the Gathering lore. Today we continue the story of Crimson Vow as the world of Innistrad descends into darkness and debauchery, celebrated by the vampires who now claim dominion over this plane. Their unquestioned leader, Olivia Voldaren, looks to secure her powerful position with a political marriage, joining the House Voldaren with the House of Markov. In our last episode, we found that the grandson of the groom, Sorin Markov, objects to this most unholy union, and plans to crash the wedding. Now through the very gates of hell, what fate awaits him as one of Olivia's most honored guests? Remember guys, if you want to catch any of the previous chapters of Crimson Vow's story, be sure to click on the annotation on your screen right now or follow the playlist linked in the description below. And be sure to join me at the end of this video as I announce the winner of last week's FNL giveaway. Of course, if you want to support the Ether Hub here on YouTube, I encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this video. It all goes a long way in supporting our content here. Now let's embark on Chapter 6 of Crimson Vow's story, written by Arsenault, Rivera. Here comes the bride. Sorin walks alone. The guards on either side of him must think otherwise. With the barrier secure, they opted to escort him to the castle, sending messenger bats for reinforcements to replace them at the outer gates. Every one of his footfalls is echoed by theirs, the sharp tap of his shoes on the marble floors, the soft clatter of their armor. If they chose, they could move as soundlessly as moonlight through the darkness. But instead, there is the steady rhythm of their steps for company. And soon, their braying. "You didn't adhere to the dress code," says one. Sorin does not know his name, nor does he care to. The colors were specified in the invitation. Towers floated atop chunks of rock on either side of them. Within each of those towers, a host of Voldarens and their guests pour blood for each other. The scent of debauchery reaches him even here. He wonders if all of them are adhering to the dress code. In the distance, the churning sea continues ever on its course, ignorant to what occurs here. He says nothing. Petals of blood land on his cloak, coloring the frost. Onward through the gates of the castle, filigreed with the Voldaren symbol and Olivia's silhouette within it. The sheer audacity of the woman. If egos alone could conquer, Olivia Voldaren would have long since carved her throne from the bones of Innistrad. Tonight, she will. The woman at the door looks him up and down with clear disgust, as if his finery is somehow less appropriate because it is black and gray. Sorin might not have the patience for vampire politicking, but he knows well enough how to dress, unlike many of these whelps. "Your invitation." He hands it over, fuming though he may be. They knew who he was. Everyone knew who he was. Olivia must have told this girl to act in such a way, a simple fledgling at the door, to welcome all the lords and ladies. Had Olivia picked her for the utter disinterest in her voice? A younger Sorin would have bristled at this, but he is older now and tired. The sooner this is over with, the better. Onward through the doors, where music swallows him whole, enthralled musicians play near gilded fountains of blood. The piece is at least 300 years old by his count. Everyone here knows it. And indeed, there are some who dance to the tune, even here where the party has not yet begun. The green light filtering through the windows lends everything an eerie cast, as if he's watching a painting in place of people. But then, it comes. Inevitably, as the outside tides, one of the revelers gets hungry, wanders over, and tears out a musician's throat. Really, some of these guests can't be counted as people. To be given over to your desires so thoroughly that you cannot keep yourself from ruining the entertainment is to be less than human. And they are all like this. Yes, for thousands of years, they have all been like this. Sorin? Is that Sorin Markov? He keeps walking. The hallways of the Voldaren estate are meant to confuse. It's one of Olivia's oldest tricks. Get the revelers drunk by one means or another, tell them they absolutely shouldn't wander off, make a few people disappear when they do. There are more geists in the muttering corridors than there are pages in all of Olivia's library, each one a victim of hers. each one wandering these weird halls, where doors sometimes lead to sudden drops and stairs are given to rearrange. But the trick of it is that the Voldaren estate follows Olivia's whims. On some level, he knew this was going to happen. Something like this. During his ignoble prison sentence, she was already making ludicrous grabs for power. It was only natural that someone so nakedly ambitious would hit on the idea of a political marriage. And once she'd had the idea, there were few on Innistrad who could offer her an increase in power. Henrika loved revenge more than power. The Falkenrath had no one to offer. Runo Stromkirk would sooner give himself to the unknoble beings of the sea. That left Sorin unattainable to her, or his grandfather. He should have known. The closer they came to the ballroom, the more people they ran into. Thralls who do not care to look at him. Fledglings who do so with abandon, as if the act of laying eyes on Sorin Markov is something so profoundly profane as to challenge the course of their ageless existence. "It's him, the man in the rock," they say. How droll! Shouldn't he have a mouth like a gorger? He's familiar with the term, but only in passing. The Falkenrath had earned a new name for themselves. He's handsome for such a fool. They giggle as they flit by him, mouths red with their last meals, glasses clink together. Behind him, the guard's armor keeps clattering. Above him, petals of blood float on clouds of music. Silently, he thinks of all he has done to enable this life they lead. He hates it here. Onward to the ballroom itself, a space so wide it is difficult to imagine how it fits within the castle's architecture. The moon alone could not provide ample lighting. Spectral yellow-green magic fills the gaps. Dancers, duelists, lollygaggers, and layabouts. There are hundreds of them gathered, and all are reflected upon the polished marble floors. Fountains of blood offer inebriation. Chained thralls offer something a little fresher for the concierge among the crowd. A lithe man by the doors blows a horn, announcing the extremely welcomed, very honored Sorin Markov. He thinks, not for the first time, of murder. But he knows what will come of that, surrounded here by those who want to see him brought low. All Olivia must do is say the word, then they will descend upon him, crows to the carrion, and all the synchromancy in the world will only buy him another few moments. Meanwhile, Arlen's ramshackle coalition would wait outside none the wiser. So he does not kill the crier, and he does not kill any of the people who turn to look at him. How many eyes are upon him? He does not know, but he can feel everyone like the tip of a dagger across his flesh. But the stake in his heart comes when he looks upon the dais. There's no mistaking it, that is his grandfather's coffin. And that woman, cloaked in the roiling souls of her victims, is Olivia Voldaren. Silence reigns in the House of Abandon. Even from here, even across the ballroom, he can tell when she begins to smile. "My dearest Sorin," she calls. "What a delight, you're right on time." He scowls, a wave of restrained laughter rolls through the crowd. He doffs his cloak, casting it behind him, walking down the aisle to his grandfather's stolen coffin. "Olivia, it's always a pleasure," he says. "I see you've spared no expense." And why should I? This joyous occasion deserves only the finest, wouldn't you agree? I wouldn't want your grandfather to wake up to anything less than the best. He cannot keep himself from clenching his teeth together, but he continues, one step, another, falling petals, clinking glasses. Olivia snaps her fingers. One of the thralls hands her an ornate knife. "Ask him yourself if you like," she says. "It'll only be a moment." "What you're doing is madness." "Madness? Oh my dear boy, this is the wisest thing I've ever done," she answers. The daggers shift then, the crowd's attention now on Olivia. With a small flourish, she rakes the knife across her arm. Old blood, potent blood, blood dark as the night around them, drips into Edgar Markov's coffin. The red chandelier above, the red carpets below, joined by the woman in her red wedding dress. The red blood on the white slab coffin. Each drip makes him angrier. Every instant that woman's foul blood runs along the carvings of his family's history is an insult. His grandfather, who created everything these people so value, his grandfather, who created them, used as a simple political tool. He knows what is going to happen. The grooves run all the way to the inner workings of the coffin. Any moment now, the woman's blood will drip into his grandfather's lips. The rush of it will leave him overwhelmed, and worse, her own memories and emotions will mingle with his. Sorin was so careful whenever he woke his grandfather. He'd wait and wait until his own storm of emotions had settled. He'd keep his mind trained on pleasant memories. He'd do whatever was necessary to see that his grandfather woke comfortably. To wake from slumber is a frightening thing for vampires, much as no one wants to admit it. And now his grandfather is going to wake tasting that woman's blood, thick with ambition, surrounded by these insects. It is, in the end, a childish thought. Probably the most childish thought he's ever had. And certainly the most childish thought he's had in recent memory. But it is there, at the core of all this, a single thought that echoes and echoes. He doesn't want to lose his grandfather. He doesn't want to see his grandfather get hurt. In all the planes, no one had known him longer. No one knew the story of his life so well. From his childhood to his ascendancy, his failures to his triumphs. No one else remembered anymore. All the others were dead. That realization is the flame. His rage, the powder. The instant he has the thought is the instant everything changes. The explosion incinerates all caution. Sorin charges ahead. The guards are there to meet him, 4 standing with spears interlinked. Mice before cats have a better chance at survival. When Sorin pounces on one, he tears out their throats before the 2 of them even hit the ground. 2 of the others he freezes in place, their blood stopping in their bodies. He readies to leap again towards Olivia. But in his haste, he's forgotten the last man. A thick, heavy chain around his neck chokes his progress, yanking him backwards like a collared dog. If he can go just one more step, he could stop Olivia, he could stop this whole ritual. But the guards drag him 1 step back, his feet tripping over the bodies. Sorin snarls. His eyes lock on the sight in front of him. The coffin, the blood, Olivia's smiling face. Just 1 more step. Another guard joins the first, another blessed silver chain around his chest. He strains forward, a 3rd guard, a 4th. More and more pile on, faster than his magic can work on them, faster than he can stop them. All he can do is try to reach them, and watch. Watch as the coffin slides open and his grandfather emerges from within. Edgar Markov does not survey the gathered crowd, nor his restrained grandson. He has eyes only for Olivia Voldaren. He smiles at her. Sorin strains to remember his grandfather smiling like this before now. It's beaming, pure, and all the more horrifying for that. He's smiling like a child. Ladies, gentlemen, and Sorin, Olivia announces, I present to you my handsome, perfect betrothed, Lord Edgar Markov. He takes her hand. For long, horrible moments, he drinks the blood from her wrists. Only after this does he rise from the coffin. Done with his meal, he dabs at his face with a handkerchief. Now he turns to face the crowd. Now he takes in the sight. Father, Sorin shouts. Grandfather, she's controlling you. It is only then that Edgar regards him, and only as a man might regard his unruly pet. The smile from only moments ago sags into sympathy. Sorin, please. You're ruining the festivities. The festivities? Sorin repeats. He can't think of anything else to say. There was a small hope tucked away within him, a hope he hadn't even acknowledged, that Olivia's charms might fail to ensnare his grandfather. Could it truly be as easy as this? His grandfather shows no signs of changing course. Olivia snaps her fingers. A host of thralls spring to action. Like spiders weaving a web, they swirl about him, helping him piece by piece into his wedding finery. Sorin's stomach sinks. He realizes faintly that the guards have stopped holding him back. He could move now if he wanted, but he can't summon the strength. Not as Olivia takes his grandfather's arm, not as the guests smile at him. Why the long face? It isn't as if you'll be alone on the groom side, Olivia says. He's too worn down to dignify it with a response, but she makes good on her word. He won't be. There are other coffins. He has so many relatives. It'd be impossible to store them all at Markov Manor. Many slumbered in their own properties, and they hadn't escaped Olivia's notice. Olivia flits from one coffin to the other like a mad honeybee. A few drops is all it takes to start the process of waking the ancients. Somehow, despite Edgar being her promised husband, she never seems to take her eyes off of Sorin. He wonders how much she knows. He wonders if she's picked him out by hand, the ancestors he most detested. He suspects that she has. It wouldn't be a difficult thing to do. He's rarely seen eye to eye with the rest of his family. He isn't sure when it happens, but it does. Perhaps by the time his third aunt wakes from her slumber to sneer at him. Sorin Markov looks away. One by one, his family passes him by. One by one, they kiss his cheeks and demand he does the same. All the while, they say nothing, for there is nothing to be said. There's a wedding on, after all, and talking with Sorin always ruined the mood in Markov Manor. And there you guys go, Chapter 6 of Crimson Vow Story. This was the first crescendo moment for sure, as we get our first glimpse at a savage Sorin lashing out against his step-grandmother. Sorin will stop at nothing to end this hideous mockery of a union, even as his heart sinks at his grandfather's complacency. Edgar Markov clearly has his mind dominated by Olivia's charming magic, but how are our heroes going to break it? And what will Edgar do once he snaps back to reality? That's all still to be seen. Still, this is the old school, all-out, vampiric Sorin we get to see in this story. Gone is the brooding, emotional hermit, as Sorin finally gets his mojo back in the lore. With that, let's announce the winner of last week's FNL card giveaway, which is a copy of Sorin Markov. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to keep updates on Friday Night Lore videos and their giveaways. And the winner for this week's FNL is Meaige. And I'm sorry if I butchered your last name there, but hey, congrats all the same. Anyway guys, thank you so much for joining me today for Magic the Gathering lore. Please consider supporting the free content here by subscribing and sharing the video with your friends, as that's by far the best way that you guys can help me grow this community. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see ya!